The Starship was not just old, it was embarrassing. Even before the auction began, commentators across the galaxy were already joking about it. The camera drone circled a massive hull floating in dry dock, showing every strange angle and uneven line. It looked like someone had started building 3 different ships and never finished any of them. Its official name was VCS Null Horizon. Most people just called it the Mistake. Years ago, it had been announced as a bold experiment. It was supposed to change space travel forever. Instead, it drained funds, confused engineers, and nearly tore itself apart during its first engine test. Since then, it had sat in orbit above the Galactic Trade Council's main station, powered down and forgotten. Now it was listed for scrap. Inside the grand auction chamber, representatives from powerful empires filled the seats. Tall avian diplomats clicked their beaks in amusement. Smooth-skinned delegates from water worlds whispered and laughed. Even the coal machine envoys allowed their optics to flicker with faint mockery. A large hollow display lit up in the center of the chamber. The Null Horizon rotated slowly in blue light. "As you can see," the auctioneer announced, his voice echoing, "this vessel features an experimental core rated as unstable." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Unstable was a polite word. During its last activation, the core had surged beyond safe limits and shut itself down. Engineers called it unpredictable. Investors called it a nightmare. The display zoomed in on the hull. There are no visible weapon systems. The auctioneer continued. Another wave of laughter. In a galaxy where ships were judged by their firepower, a vessel without visible weapons was a joke. Warships displayed their strength proudly. Cannons, launch arrays, shield emitters. These were signs of respect. The Null Horizon had none. Worse, its structure was strange. One side extended farther than the other. The spine curved slightly off-center. The engine cluster was not aligned in a neat row. Analysts had called it inefficient. Some called it ugly. Financial records appeared on the display next. Total project costs exceeded projections by 400%. The auctioneer said calmly, "Operational success rate, 0. More laughter. A reptilian counselor leaned back in his seat and said loudly, "It flies as well as a brick." Even the auctioneer allowed himself a small smile. "Opening bid," he announced. 100,000 credits. Silence. Across the galaxy, viewers watched through live broadcasts. Entire systems tuned in not to compete, but to enjoy the spectacle. Comment feeds exploded with jokes. Memes were already spreading before the auctioneer finished speaking. 100,000 credits, he repeated. No lights blinked. No signals registered. He lowered the price. 50,000. Nothing. The chamber grew louder with quiet amusement. Some delegates openly checked their personal displays. Bored already, others recorded clips to replay later as entertainment. 10,000 credits. The auctioneer tried again. Still nothing. The Null Horizon rotated slowly in blue light, silent and exposed. For a moment, it almost seemed smaller. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Final call. 10,000 credits. A pause stretched across the chamber. Then, in a quiet row near the back, a small indicator light blinked. It was subtle, almost easy to miss. The system chimed softly. Bid received. The chamber fell silent. The hollow display shifted to identify the bidder. A small human delegation. They were not dressed in flashy uniforms. No grand banners floated behind them. Just 4 humans, seated calmly, hands resting on the table before them. The auctioneer blinked. Human delegation. Bid confirmed at 10,000 credits. For one heartbeat, the chamber remained quiet. Then the laughter returned, louder than before. An avian diplomat tilted his head. They are serious? A machine envoy projected a low electronic hum that translated to amusement. The reptilian counselor leaned forward, eyes narrow. Of course. Humans collect broken things. More laughter. The auctioneer nodded. 10,000 credits, going once, going twice. No other bids appeared. Sold. To the human delegation. A small hammer struck the desk. The hollow display dimmed slightly as ownership transferred. In the broadcast feeds, reactions exploded. Commentators spoke over one another. Only humans would buy that. They enjoy impossible projects. Perhaps they will turn it into a museum. Or a restaurant, someone joked. In the chamber, the reptilian counselor smirked and said loudly enough for many to hear, "Humans always collect broken things." More laughter followed. The human delegation did not react. They did not smile. They did not argue. They simply stood. One of them, a tall woman with silver threads in her dark hair, adjusted a small tablet in her hands. Another, a younger man with calm eyes, studied the rotating image of the ship. There was no embarrassment in their faces. No pride either. Only focus. The holodisplay zoomed once more on the null horizon. Up close, its strange shape seemed less like a mistake and more like a question. The humans watched carefully, as if trying to understand what others had missed. Around them, delegates continued to whisper and laugh. Waste of credits. They will scrap it within a year. Humans are emotional. They cannot resist lost causes. The humans said nothing. They left the chamber quietly, their footsteps soft against the polished floor. Outside, beyond the massive station windows, the null horizon floated in orbit, dark, silent, and mocked by an entire galaxy. In the docking registry, its ownership tag changed. Human authority. On the viewing platforms, commentators were still laughing. But in a small private hangar bay, far from the noise of the chamber, the human delegation stood before a detailed projection of the ship. The tall woman enlarged the image of the unstable core. The younger man traced the asymmetrical hull with his finger. "Interesting," he said softly. No one laughed there. Only silence and quiet curiosity. The galaxy expected the humans to scrap it. They did not. Within days of the auction, the null horizon was moved from public orbit to a quiet human-controlled shipyard near the edge of their territory. The docks closed. External cameras went dark. All live feeds were cut. No press statements were released. No proud announcements were made. Across the galaxy, commentators waited for news of demolition. They expected to see the strange hull cut apart and sold piece by piece. Instead, there was silence. That silence began to bother people. Inside Dock 7, the ship looked even stranger up close. Its uneven spine cast long shadows across the metal floor. The hull plating was scarred from failed tests. Warning symbols still marked sections around the core chamber. A team of human engineers walked through its empty corridors. They did not laugh. They did not complain. They scanned. They measured. They listened. Deep inside the ship, the unstable core rested behind layers of shielding. It had been labeled dangerous, faulty, a failure. Chief Engineer Mara Iqbal stood before it, arms folded. "It's not unstable," she said quietly. A younger engineer looked at her. "The Council reports." "The Council shut it down before it finished cycling," she replied. "They were afraid of it." She activated a simulation on her wrist display. Data flowed across the air between them. "The core isn't broken," she continued. "It's overclocked. It was pushing beyond standard safety limits." Why would they design it that way? Mara studied the numbers again. Because they were trying to build something bigger than they understood. Elsewhere in the ship, another team examined the asymmetrical structure. At first glance, it looked inefficient, but as they mapped stress points and energy pathways, a pattern emerged. The uneven frame distributed force in unusual ways. The extended port side allowed for layered compartments that normal ships could not support. The curved spine reduced resonance during high-energy surges. "It's modular," one engineer realized. "Extremely modular," another corrected. The ship was not badly designed. It was flexible. Over the next months, the docks remained sealed. Massive shipments arrived quietly. Advanced processors, shield matrices, gravity field projectors. None of them looked like weapons. There were no giant cannons delivered. No missile bays installed. No external turrets added. Instead, workers reinforced internal beams. They strengthened the skeleton rather than changing the shape. New conduits were threaded through the walls like veins. Computational arrays were installed in layers, hidden deep within the hull. The core chamber was rebuilt carefully, not replaced. Understood. Mara and her team adjusted the containment rings, giving the core space to operate at intended output. They created new balancing systems instead of restricting its power. When the core was finally activated again, it did not surge wildly. It hummed. A low, steady sound filled the chamber. Energy readings climbed higher than any standard ship could manage. But this time, the structure held firm. Outside human space, other empires grew curious. Long-range probes drifted near the sealed dock perimeter. Listening posts tried to intercept signals. Analysts waited for signs of heavy weapons being mounted. They saw none. Spy reports reached the Galactic Council. Minimal external modification, one analyst said. Hull profile unchanged. Another added, no visible armament expansion. The reptilian counselor, who had mocked the humans at the auction, read the report and frowned. Then what are they doing, he asked. No one had an answer. Back in Dock 7, months turned into years. The ships inside no longer matched its worn exterior. Where empty cargo holds once stood, there were now rooms filled with quantum processors. They formed a network capable of predicting energy shifts in real time. Adaptive shield systems were woven into the hull itself. Instead of fixed barriers, they adjusted shape and density based on incoming forces. Gravity manipulation technology was installed along the spine. Small emitters lined the uneven frame, using its strange angles to project controlled distortions into space. It was subtle work, careful work. The ships outside remained almost exactly the same. No one added bright insignias or new plating. From a distance, the null horizon still looked like a mistake. Inside, it was becoming something else. 3 years after the auction, Dock 7 opened for the first time. The news spread quickly. Observers gathered in distant systems to watch through long-range feeds. The massive hangar doors parted slowly. The null horizon drifted forward. Gasps moved through the viewing stations. It looked unchanged. The asymmetrical hull was still there. The curved spine still bent slightly off-center. No cannons lined its sides. No launch bays open along its surface. It's the same, an analyst whispered. Did they fail? Another asked. The ship cleared the dock and moved into open space. For a moment, it simply floated. Then its engines ignited, not in a violent burst, but in a smooth, controlled glow. The power signature was steady, balanced, far stronger than before, yet calm. Sensors across nearby systems flickered briefly as subtle gravity shifts passed through local space. Nothing destructive, just enough to be noticed. The null horizon adjusted its heading with precise movements. No smoke, no shaking, no visible strain. The human command channel transmitted a simple message. Recommissioned. No speech followed, no explanation. The ship accelerated, leaving the dock behind. Its silhouette remained the same against the stars, but the way space bent slightly around it told a different story. The galaxy had expected scrap. Instead, something quiet and far more dangerous had just awakened. War did not begin with an explosion. It began with a message. 2 major empires along the outer border accused each other of treaty violations. Trade routes were blocked. Patrol ships vanished. Then a rogue war fleet, commanded by an ambitious admiral who wanted power, entered the contested sector. Within days, stations were damaged. Civilian traffic froze. Entire systems went dark. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Large fleets were requested. Heavy weapons were authorized. Fear spread quickly. The rogue war fleet was massive. Hundreds of ships, battle cruisers, siege carriers, interceptors moving in tight formation. They advanced through the sector like a storm cloud. Council members argued about response strategies. Then a quiet voice from the human delegation spoke. We will send assistance. Relief moved across the chamber. How many vessels? One counselor asked. 1. Silence followed. Clarify. The reptilian counselor demanded. 1 vessel. The human delegate repeated calmly. The chamber screens updated. Human authority deployment. VCS null horizon. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a few quiet chuckles. The scrap ship, someone whispered. It has no visible weapons, another added. This is not a salvage operation, a counselor snapped. The human delegate did not respond. Hours later, in the contested sector, long-range sensors detected the approaching human vessel. The rogue admiral leaned back in his command chair as the data appeared before him. One ship, he asked. Yes, Admiral. Scan it. The tactical officer worked quickly. Minimal armament detected, no heavy cannons, no missile arrays. A smile spread across the admiral's face. They send a symbol, he said. Not a threat. Open communication channels crackled to life. Across fleet frequencies, laughter echoed. Humans send their museum piece. Perhaps they hope to distract us. Shall we disable it quickly? The null horizon drifted into visual range. Its asymmetrical hull looked small compared to the surrounding warships. No weapon ports opened. No energy spikes indicated a charge. It simply moved forward, calm and steady. The rogue admiral raised a hand. Target lock. Dozens of warships aligned their weapons. Targeting systems engaged. Then something strange happened. Admiral, the tactical officer said slowly, targeting lock unstable. Explain. Our systems are recalibrating automatically. On another ship, propulsion readings flickered. Drive output fluctuating. A third vessel reported. Shield matrix cycling unexpectedly. The admiral frowned. Counter-interference. There is no visible interference source, an engineer replied. The null horizon continued its slow advance. It did not fire. It did not accelerate. It did not broadcast threats. Space around it shimmered faintly, not bright enough for the eye, but detectable in sensor logs. Subtle distortions rippled outward. Gravity fields shifted, not violently, precisely. Targeting arrays across the rogue fleet struggled to maintain focus. Predictive algorithms failed to lock onto stable coordinates. Weapon systems attempted to charge, then shut down as power cycles dropped to safe mode. Energy redistribution anomaly detected. A systems officer reported. Our reactors are compensating automatically. Override them, the admiral barked. I cannot. Safety protocols triggered. On the outer edges of the fleet, ships began drifting slightly off formation. Propulsion fields lost perfect alignment, nudged by gentle but constant gravitational variations. No explosions occurred. No hulls were breached. But control slipped away. The null horizon adjusted position. Along its curved spine, hidden gravity emitters activated in careful sequence. The asymmetrical frame amplified their effect, bending local space just enough to disrupt coordinated fleet movement. Inside the human vessel, engineers monitored streams of data, field distribution stable, core output within optimal limits, fleet propulsion destabilization at 60%. Mara Iqbal stood in the operations center, watching calmly. Maintain spread, she said. No structural damage. Outside, the rogue admiral gripped his chair. Why are our weapons offline? Power fluctuations, Admiral. Our systems cannot maintain firing charge. One by one, warships reported the same problem. Cannons powered down. Missile bays refused to cycle. Shield grids adjusted automatically to compensate for shifting gravitational pressure. The entire armada began to drift, not destroyed, disabled. The null horizon moved to the center of the formation like a silent current in water. No shots fired, no debris scattered, just systems failing in quiet sequence. Council observers watched from distant monitoring stations in disbelief. They are not attacking, one analyst whispered. They are rewriting the battlefield, another replied. The rogue admiral opened a final channel. What weapon is this? He demanded. The human ship did not answer immediately. Instead, its gravity field intensified slightly, just enough to pull the fleet's formation further apart, preventing coordinated action. After several long seconds, a single transmission left the null horizon. Clear. Calm. We do not build for war. The admiral stared at the silent display. The message continued. We build to end it. Across the sector, the rogue fleet drifted powerless. Engines running but ineffective. Weapons intact, but unusable. Shields active but strained. Hundreds of warships floated in space. Fully operational machines that could not act. No catastrophic destruction. No shattered hulls. Just defeat. The null horizon slowed, holding position at the center of the disabled armada. In the council chamber, no one laughed. The reptilian counselor leaned forward, eyes wide. The ship they had mocked. The one they had called useless. It had fired nothing. And yet an entire war had stopped. Intact, but defeated. In the days after the crisis, the galaxy did not celebrate. It studied. Every major empire gathered its best analysts. Sensor logs were replayed thousands of times. Energy signatures were slowed down and examined frame by frame. Fleet recordings were compared side by side. What they found unsettled them. The human ship had not used missiles. It had not fired beams. It had not even locked onto a target. Instead, space itself had shifted. In the central chamber of the Galactic Council, a large projection showed the moment the null horizon entered the rogue fleet's formation. Colored lines traced gravitational fluctuations. Energy graphs rose and fell in smooth waves. A machine envoy spoke first. The vessel did not emit destructive force. An avian analyst adjusted the display. It altered local gravity gradients in control patterns. The reptilian counselor narrowed his eyes. In simple terms, the analyst took a breath. It bent space carefully. The chamber grew quiet. They moved to the core readings next. For years, the unstable core of the null horizon had been labeled a failure. It produced power spikes that exceeded safety limits. It pushed too hard. It frightened regulators. Now, the data showed something different. The core had not surged randomly. It had generated steady, high-output energy waves that fed directly into the ship's gravity systems. It was never unstable, a council engineer admitted quietly. It was operating beyond standard doctrine. Standard doctrine exists for a reason, someone replied. Yes, the engineer said, to prevent risk. On the projection, the asymmetrical hull rotated slowly. For decades, designers had favored symmetry. It was easier to calculate, easier to balance. But the null horizon's uneven frame created natural channels for field projection. Its extended side allowed gravity emitters to layer their influence without interference. Its curved spine reduced internal stress while amplifying directional distortion. It was perfect for distribution, the analyst said. The reptilian counselor stared at the image. We called it inefficient. It is efficient, the analyst corrected gently. Just not in the way we measure. Another display showed what had happened to the rogue fleet. No ships destroyed. No hull breaches. No debris fields. Instead, targeting systems failed because space around them would not stay stable long enough to calculate firing solutions. Propulsion fields destabilized because gravitational constants shifted slightly out of expected range. Weapons powered down automatically to protect themselves from overload. The human ship had not attacked. It had changed the rules of engagement. It neutralized aggression. The machine envoy observed. Without annihilation. That sentence lingered in the chamber. Without annihilation. For centuries, power in the galaxy had been measured by destruction. Bigger cannons, stronger shields, faster missiles. The null horizon offered something else. Control. In private offices across multiple empires, military leaders asked the same question. If they can disable one fleet, a general said quietly, can they disable ours? There was no answer. Human representatives were invited back to the council. This time, there was no laughter. The same delegation entered the chamber calmly. They took their seats without ceremony. The reptilian counselor spoke first. You altered gravitational constants across an active battlefield. Yes, the human delegate replied. You destabilized an entire armada. We prevented escalation. You demonstrated capability beyond standard military doctrine. The human delegate nodded once. We demonstrated restraint. Murmurs moved through the chamber. An avian diplomat leaned forward. Why not build conventional weapons? Why design something so indirect? The human delegate paused. Because destruction creates enemies, he said simply. Control creates choices. The chamber fell silent again. The analysts had reached their conclusion already, but hearing it spoken aloud made it heavier. The ship was never useless. It had been ahead of its time. The unstable core was not a flaw. It was potential that required courage to use. The asymmetrical structure was not a mistake. It was a solution that did not fit traditional thinking. Humans had not added massive cannons or devastating warheads. They had unlocked what was already there. They had understood what others had dismissed. In a quiet corner of the chamber, an Empire ambassador who had once laughed at the auction watched the rotating image of the null horizon. He remembered the jokes, the mockery, the easy dismissal. He leaned toward a colleague and spoke softly, almost himself. They didn't turn scrap into a weapon. He watched the gravitational field simulation ripple across the display. They turned it into leverage. No one disagreed. For the first time since the auction, the galaxy looked at the strange, uneven ship and felt something new. Not amusement, not confusion, respect, and just a little fear. Months later, the galaxy felt different. There were no major wars, no emergency fleet mobilizations, no loud speeches about retaliation. Trade routes reopened. Border stations resumed normal operations. Diplomatic channels, once filled with accusations, now carried careful and measured words. It was not because fear had vanished. It was because something new existed. The null horizon. It did not anchor itself near the human core worlds. It did not guard rich systems or powerful capitals. Instead, it moved slowly between contested regions, border zones, disputed sectors, old flashpoints where tension used to rise like heat from a star. It never arrived with fanfare, no dramatic broadcast, no warning shots. It simply appeared on sensors, and when it did, fleets adjusted their course. On one distant border, two rival patrol groups faced each other across a thin line of space. Weapons were powered but not yet locked. Commanders exchanged sharp messages, each daring the other to make the first move. Then a third signal entered the system. Human authority vessel detected. VCS null horizon. Both patrol groups paused. Long-range scans confirmed it. Same asymmetrical hull. Same curved spine. Same strange silhouette that once caused laughter. The ship drifted into the outer edge of the system and held position. It did nothing. Minutes passed. Then one patrol commander opened a channel to the other. We will withdraw 3 degrees. The other replied after a pause. Agreed. Both fleets slowly backed away. The null horizon never activated its gravity field. It did not need to. Its presence was enough. Across the galaxy, military academies began revising their teachings. Old lessons focused on overwhelming force and decisive strikes. Now instructors added new chapters. Control of space-time variables. Energy redistribution modeling. Strategic restraint. Some civilizations tried to replicate the technology. They studied gravity emitters. They redesigned core systems. But without the unusual frame of the null horizon and without the same bold acceptance of risk, their results were limited. The lesson was not just technical, it was philosophical. Humans had shown that power did not always mean destruction. It could mean preventing destruction before it began. Trade alliances strengthened. Joint research programs formed. Even long-standing rivals began discussing conflict resolution frameworks that assumed one simple fact: escalation would not succeed. In the Galactic Council chamber, meetings grew calmer. Disagreements still happened. Voices still rose at times. But beneath every argument was quiet awareness. The ship exists. The reptilian counselor, who once laughed, now spoke carefully when addressing the human delegation. We acknowledge your contribution to stability, he said during one session. The human delegate only nodded. We prefer peace, he replied. Beyond politics and strategy, ordinary citizens noticed changes too. Shipping delays decreased. Insurance rates dropped in border systems. News cycles focused less on war alerts and more on exploration and development. The null horizon continued its silent patrol. It never fired. It never threatened. It simply arrived. And conflict ended when it did. Years earlier, the galaxy had defined strength by visible weapons, by fleets that filled the sky with metal and fire. Now strength had a different shape, uneven, asymmetrical, quiet. One evening, far from any disputed border, the null horizon drifted through a wide purple nebula. Gas clouds shimmered softly against its hull. The strange curves of its frame reflected faint starlight. From the outside, it still looked like the same ship sold for scrap. No new plating, no proud markings, just the old structure, unchanged. Inside, however, layers of advanced computation and gravity systems hummed steadily. The core pulsed with controlled energy, stable and powerful. Chief Engineer Mara Iqbal stood on an observation deck, looking out through reinforced glass at the hull stretching into the mist of the nebula. A younger engineer joined her. "Hard to believe they almost melted it down," he said. Mara allowed herself a small smile. "They didn't understand it," she replied. "They laughed at it." She watched the nebula swirl gently around the ship's outline. "They laughed at potential," she said quietly. The younger engineer looked at the steady glow of the core readings on his tablet. Outside, the ship moved forward, bending space just enough to glide smoothly through shifting gravity pockets in the nebula. Mara's eyes followed the curve of the uneven spine. They shouldn't have. The null horizon continued its path through the stars, unchanged on the outside, galaxy altering on the inside. And because it existed, the galaxy remained quiet,